Welcome to Bulletcast, the Bullet Catcher Gaming Podcast. In this episode, we will be talking about Ghost Recon Breakpoint and Wildlands from a military perspective. Today's guests, would you please provide your branch of service and job that you either do or did while serving? Rec.
I was a combat engineer, explosives, ordnance, minefield clearing.
Hunter 2-4.
Served in the Army as an ordnance tech, dealing in disposal, transmission, or transportation, and handling of ordnance.
Ashley Mama Bird Love.
I was in the United States Army Aviation. We did Medevac, also was communication the first time I was in.
Iron Mike.
In the Marines, I was infantry, then went into warehouse clerk. Then in the Army, I was transportation with an also additional duty of master gunner. I was also a master gunner in the Marine Corps too.
Tyrant Slayer.
I'm not former service.
And me, Grandpa 8 Up. I was Army in the Fire Direction Center with artillery. I basically received missions and told the M109 howitzers when and where to shoot. And your host, Bullet Catcher, Andy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Marcus. And first thing I'd like to say is thank you for everyone for joining us on the podcast tonight. I really do appreciate it. And I'm sure from everyone that's going to listen to this, they would like to probably join me in saying thank you very much for your service. We massively appreciate it. One of the things that I'm definitely proud of at Bullet Catcher Gaming is that our Discord and also our YouTube channel, we do have a lot of veterans, whether they're currently serving or previously served, from a lot of different militaries around the world, who regularly comment on our videos, especially on the Discord as well. We've got many on there. It's really nice to see so many military personnel talking about the videos, talking about the games. And we thought that would be such a fantastic idea to invite someone and get their perspective on Breakpoint, especially. And we'll probably touch on Wildlands and possibly some other Ghost Recon titles as well. So that's basically why we're here today. So let's get started. Obviously, jump in whenever you want. The floor is yours. You've given a very brief description of your backgrounds. Obviously, I mean, this has been recorded today, the day that the Tomb Raider kind of event update has gone live. I know that hasn't gone down well with a lot of people. What do you guys think that Breakpoint's biggest issues are in terms of a military perspective?
They're lacking in that department.
Severely lacking in that department.
Definitely.
Severely lacking, yeah.
Okay, so do you want to give us some examples? So what are the things, what are the more basics? Let's start with the basics. What are the basic things that are lacking from a military perspective in the game right now? What is a really glaring issue? Like, why is this not here? Why is that not there? Can you give us some examples?
Sure. The one that hits off the top of my head is when you're getting ready to go up to a door and you're in with either your AIs or your co-op friends, and either you get bumped out of the way of the door, and now you're in the fatal funnel, which is out in the open, no obstruction between you and the enemy, and you can't stack. The whole purpose of clearing and route clearing is to be able to stack, and you want to gain a foothold in that area. And like clearing a room, you should be able to clear a room in reality, in real life, 2 people to be able to clear that room. You want to gain 3/4 of that room, leave them with barely of nothing. It's dominance. The only way you can get dominance on this game is putting a bunch of lead down towards the enemy, pretty much, and planning it accordingly with your other co-ops, but you can't stack. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like going into a tunnel, you can't stack properly. You're scared that you're going to bump somebody, or you're going to trap them to where they can't move. But you can push them out of the way, which is ridiculous to me, you know. And then throw in the freaking bullet drop. Some of the bullet drops, when you look at the scope, the mills is so off, and it's sporadic, and it's ridiculous. There's like 3 different bullet drops on attack 50 that I found within the last 3 weeks since they started messing with it. And freaking every update that they push in, it gets even worse. It gets even worse. And don't even get me started on the DMRs. Don't even get me started on the SMGs, putting a freaking weapon in a slot that shouldn't even be there. It should be in a freaking AR division, you know, and freaking, I mean, it's just, or you put an AR that should be in a freaking an LMG or an SMG slot. It's just, it's phenomenal how out of touch they are military wise, putting out a game that's supposed to be one, it's not even listed as freaking, as, you know, it's listed as first person shooter, but there's an asterisk right by it that says survival. Since I played the game, I have not drunk anything, haven't ate anything. My character should be dead by now. Way before now. Okay.
You've never had any of those
survival?
Have you never had any of those donkey balls that he eats in the or she eats in
Ew,
the
gross.
bivouac, whatever they are? That's what they look like.
Nope, not once. I've used either movement speed or accuracy, or, well, wait a minute, stamina or freaking accuracy, or the experience points when I was trying to build up my character. Well, my character's already built. Well, how much more experience does it need? It doesn't need any more experience. It needs more productively useful assets within the mechanics of the game itself in order to improve my playing of a game and then be able to enjoy it. Granted, there is some aspects of the game that I do like, but there's a lot of aspects that I hate about the game. I mean,
we'll get on to the things that you think are good or what they've done a good job of. We'll get onto that a bit later. You sound like you are literally spitting some venom here. Like this has been pent up for a long time, Mike. You literally sound like you've been desperate to get this out. Like, you know, this has been pent up since day one, since the game came out, and you finally got a chance to tell the world.
It's not so much venom. It's I expected more, and what I'm getting is kind of disappointing. And me coming from being a longtime Tom Clancy follower, even in the books, even before it even came to a game, and then I'm seeing how it's being managed now, is just, it's a slap in the face to Tom Clancy. I'm like, come on, and this is a veteran, you know what I mean? And freaking, he brought these games to us, and this is how they're mismanaging these games after he's passed. I mean, come on now. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah, there's been a lot of comments today with people. I've seen the quote. You know, Tom Clancy would be rolling in his grave a few times today after the Tomb Raider update. I mean, I don't know what Ubisoft. I think they were just presented with this idea. You know, oh, would you mind putting this in or whatever? Who knows? We'll never know what the truth is in regards to that. But they did put it in there, and it's not what the game really needs at the moment is something more to do. And these
spark.
Yeah, and these things that we've been given, not just on this, it's not even an update really, and the AI teammates really hasn't done what the community really wants from this game. They need something to do, a new way to play, something that is really going to kind of give this game a proper kick up the ass effectively. But anyway, so let's before we go into all of that stuff. So, what about Rec and Hunter or Ashley? What are some of the things that really stick out to you, and you 8 Up as well? What are some of the things that you really believe, in terms of your military experience, just don't add up in this game?
May I?
Absolutely.
Yeah, please go first.
Some of the things that just, I mean, I understand that it's a game, and I understand that, you know, you're meant to play a game, and understand that, you know, it is what it is. But, the flight to me is, it's just not great. I did a post back in Wildlands when it first came out for their helicopters and stuff. I was trying to find the post so I could reference to it, but the flight when Wildlands came out was so wildly awful that you just couldn't do anything. You couldn't yaw. The pitch was weird. All of it was just weird. So I did a post and I told them, hey, look, y'all got to fix this. You got to put in these things, at least the yaw, because obviously you need to be able to turn to be able to allow your gunner to get to work. And I feel like it's like pushing a Hot Wheels car. When you land, it just plops down. When you're flying, you could clip trees and it's like, yeah, whatever. You could sit there and clip telephone poles for 10 minutes before the helicopter blows up. I mean, things like that kind of irritate me. I really feel like there needs to be turbulence. I think that needs to be a skill to be able to fly those things. I mean, I think that GTA handles it better. It's not great, but it does definitely handle it better in a lot of ways, flight. And I think that, these guys at Ubisoft could definitely take a lesson from those guys. And since I'm kind of having the floor, sorry, nervous. Is it me or is cover fire not working?
Nope.
So yeah, like you should be able to have a friend with a 60 or something, or a 50 or whatever it is on mounted, and they should be able to provide cover fire while your team shoots, moves, and communicates. And to me, that is just a staple of combat. If you can provide that cover fire from the air, from the ground, from wherever, you should be able to support your team in that fashion. And I think they really dropped the ball with that. But maybe that's just me.
But yeah, who's next? Hunter, do you want to go?
I'm going to ask my brother Rec to go first because when I get started, you might have to cut me off at some point.
I can attest to that. This man's got some mean hate Twitter going on for Ubisoft.
That's cool. We want to hear it. Go for it then, Rec. You go next.
Well, Ashley brought up a good point with the shoot, move, communicate, and the cover fire. It actually kicked something off in my mind too that kind of been laid in the back. Is enemies' reaction to getting shot. Now, when they fire on our characters and we actually take that hit, our character reacts how as close as I think Ubisoft can get to how a person would actually react to getting shot. They have that twitch, that gimp, that throwback, and the aim gets spent all off. However, when you return fire onto that enemy and you hit that enemy, they're just standing there, like they souped up on some super soldier serum.
Mm-hmm.
They don't react at all, and then you can dump almost a whole mag into them, and they can still get another shot off. My biggest problem's been with breachers. They run up on you, and you can see them most of the time before they get to you. You can dump a mag into them, but they can still get that shot off. But if they hit you, you're blown back like 5-10 feet. Um, Another thing to hit on also is I kind of the control. I feel like the controls for the flight and breakpoint, also touching back on Ashley, I feel like for breakpoint, they're a little too rigid, too simple.
Agreed.
Like Like kind of stealing off of yours, GTA, the flight controls are actually kind of difficult. I have a problem, but you actually have your yaw, your pitch, you have a little bit of turbulence. Breakpoint don't really have that. I mean, without even touching anything, you can easily adjust your altitude and just hover normally. You know, it'll just hover. You keep that same altitude, and then the copter on its own, the kilo, will twitch on its own, kind of like mimicking how pilots kind of got that shaky turbulence hand. And to me, that could be adjusted to be a lot better than what it is.
Can I ask a quick question, just based off of that, for you and for Mama Bird? You're talking about the helicopter. Do you think it makes any difference if they brought back classic flight controls, or do you think that was equally as bad? Because a lot of people have been asking for it.
I personally think it would be better to bring back classic controls. If my memory serves me right, they actually had that in Wildland. Wildlands had the classic flight controls, if my memory serves me right.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
but they didn't have a yaw with that. That was kind of part of the problem, right? So,
but
I mean,
even
not that I saw.
but even with that, it was still a lot better than, I mean, the stiff, simple stuff that they going on a
Hmm.
breakpoint. I would take the classic controls over this any day.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be hard to add the yaw in there and create. I mean, I don't really remember that. I remember flying. I guess that very first Wildlands thing, and it wasn't something that impressed me very much.
Okay,
But
so
I guess that was
anything
just
else?
me.
Anything else other than helicopters then, Rec, for you?
Um, yeah, I can hit off another thing. I'm gonna also steal another one forward from Iron Mike here. Uh, is DMRs and basic range. Now, Wildlands did a great. I felt like they did a great job. I felt like they had their homework in it. Their render was also great. I mean, I had without the kind of the cheat code, having a friend hold my enemy to get those long 1 click, 2 click shots off. Their render was already close. I think close to a click, 1,000 kilometers. It was a lot further than what it is in Breakpoint. And I think I've caught my render that bounces somewhere between 650 and 750 meters, and I'll like completely lose render on them. Now, in reality, from most of my friends that I know that have gone to that long range and doing a little bit of personal long range shooting myself after the army, uh, most long range shooters, they can touch out easily to that 1,000 meter, 1,300 meter. Like you can still see that. If they want that realistic aspect, like they were hyping it up before they dropped Breakpoint for all this, that render distance would be a lot further than what it was. Also, going into your DMRs, that actual range is total knockoff crap. I mean, I've shot some 5.56, some 7.62, and the distance, the range that they have for the DMRs, it's like I'm shooting, a pistol caliber. It doesn't. You have to adjust a lot sooner than what you really would have to. And even then, going into some of the sniper rifles, I think the Zastava has one. Yeah, I believe the Zastava is a sniper rifle. I'm maybe getting mixed up. No, I'm pretty sure. Um, you have to adjust heavily, even going over 700 meters. You have to adjust heavily on your mill sight to the point I use the TXI optic for most of mine. I'm already adjusting all the way off my mill dot. I'm in the black render where my optic is, and I'm not seeing anything just to hit something that's not even yet out of render. So
Right.
that with me, Breakpoint needs to work a lot better on.
Yeah, I can see that. Let me just ask our resident gun expert, which is Jeremy. Jeremy, what do you think in terms of the guns in the game? What is the biggest issue? Do you think it is the distance? Do you think it is like the draw distance issue? What is the number one issue? Do you think if Ubisoft had to sit down and fix the weapons, what do you think is the number one thing they need to fix?
Well, all those items are an issue. They're all issues. I guess if I had to pick one to be the biggest, it would be bullet velocity / bullet drop. I mean, it's just, you're not going to outrun a 3,000 foot per second projectile. You're just not. Unless you're at very far distances where you're at the long end of the bullet flight time. But when we're in CQB and some guy's outrunning my bullets, that's just, it's unforgivable.
Yeah, because most weapons seem to be fairly accurate to about, 200 meters in the game. And then once you get past that, they go a bit all over the place.
Yeah, I would say
obviously
200 to 300 would probably be about correct.
Yeah, in and around that kind of ballpark as such.
Yeah, but
So
the
you
travel
think
time
the-
is atrocious.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously, as Rec just mentioned there, the massive difference for when you jump back into Wildlands and you are taking long-range shots is just unreal compared to Breakpoint. I mean, I would literally say the render distance is at least double what it is on Breakpoint,
If
and that's
I
just
remember
not good enough.
correctly, I think the render distance was right around 800 to 900 meters versus the 600 to 700 meters on Breakpoint. So it was about a 30% increase.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely hit from over. I hit 1K, no problems at all with render about 2 weeks ago. So I do think you can get up to about that. Probably dependent on where you are in the game, maybe, which obviously also makes a difference in Breakpoint as well. But yeah, it's fascinating. So the bullet drop is definitely an issue that people bring up over and over again. So I agree that that's something that should be fixed. Grandpa 8 Up, with your military background, what do you say is the biggest thing missing in Breakpoint specifically for the types of things that we've been talking about?
Well, I'm going to have to bounce off of everyone who's already mentioned the breachers. They eat up a lot of bullets. Plus, you don't even hear them sneaking up on you. You're in the grass. You don't even hear the grass rustling. You have the option of stacking up with a human friend, but if again, like either Rex or Mike or Hunter even said, you push too far, now your man is out in the open. Cover fire, non-existent. The chopper from Miss Ashley here, if you even hover, your sight is not even sitting still.
Truth.
It is not sitting still. So you're getting a spray no matter what. You're not even getting a direct shot. As far as the sniper range on scopes, I too, like I think Rec either or Hunter said, I use the T5 scope, and I know that scope can be used at 800 plus meters easily. Why are we limited to 650 meters?
I'd like to expand on that a little bit too, about those chopper chopper-based ballistics. I just want to point out that that's obviously only one way, because the enemy shooting off the choppers are laser-like precision, and they apparently have no concern for their own life as they're spinning out of control and shooting you at the same time.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Again,
Yeah.
truth.
100%. That seems to be a lot in this game, doesn't it? Things. I think it was Rec that mentioned it a little while ago about the fact that when you shoot an enemy, they don't react the same way as when they shoot you, which is a problem, isn't it? Really, in a
It definitely
realistic
is.
military game, they should react the same way as you react. I mean, we've said this in previous videos when we talked about features that would come into the game, and we had a lot of people saying they'd like to see enemies, hold their arm if they're shot in the arm or whatever, or stop shooting when they get shot, even if you don't kill them. Much more realistic, or fall to the ground and shoot. I mean, I've mentioned this before, but I mean, the enemies don't even lay prone and shoot at you. I mean,
here's a spot, and it's over, and everyone probably knows it easily. It's over by Whalers Bay Airport, and you got a cliff over by the bivouac. It's definitely a 800-900 meter just to the tower alone, but you can't even see to the fence with your rendering.
I know that exact spot you're talking about, and yeah, it's ridiculous because from that elevation, it's like a prime vantage point, and there's not even a single render, and it's ridiculous.
The only thing that you can get a render on is possibly either one, the mortar system, which is usually all the way in the back of the base, or the turret, which is just next to the first hangar from the northeast of the base.
There's actually 4 soldiers and a hubby you can get a sight on along with those other items you were talking about. And sometimes you can get the rocket gunner that's up there on the ATC tower sometimes from that point you're talking about.
But even on
but from the rest of them, it's non-existent.
You got 2 snipers and 2 rocket guys on top of the 2 hangars, and you can't even see them. Well, 3 snipers, correction, because you got three buildings that they're on top of. You can't even see them, let alone put a teammate down there to even show them to you, because he can mark them, and you still can't even see them.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You could actually get some air assault going off the side of that chopper, so you can at least drop them down on the roof somewhere.
Yeah, but 650 meters. I even had one guy. I asked him. I said, "What's your longest kill?" He said 300 meters. I said, "Okay, let's go to this base real quick." And I said, "Zoom in with your rifle, and then do you see the turret?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Kill it." We were on the northeast part of that base, the bivouac. I said, "Kill it." He killed it. What's your range now? 585. It was a turret kill. So even a long kill, you can't even guarantee that was a human body that you actually shot.
Now, the caveat off of that, and I don't know if anyone else has had this issue either, but for most long shots, even going outside that render range, a couple of times I'm able to still see those hardpoint MG turrets, those mortar turrets, but no people. So why give us the ability to still have that MG or that mortar unit render, but not give us any hard bodies to render?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
I mean, I can understand modern day army military is going to have some type of drone coverage, but with the amount of money that they cost to build, they're only going to be up there for a short amount of time because of fuel. I think you even said, both you and Mike, Tyrant, said this the other night in one of your streams, that they got unlimited ammo. They never run out, and their batteries never run out.
Yep, a 12 ounce drone carrying 40 pounds of ammunition.
Let a person try to carry 40 pounds of ammo, and he can try to run.
Full kit, not happening for long.
Right.
You could be a PT stud all you want. That's going to tire you out.
That's very true. Right, I think we are ready. We're ready for you, Hunter. So come on, give it to us. What's the problems? Come on, give it to us. Let's go.
All right. So I have a long list of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly rattle them off and just quickly summarize them. I'm not going to go too in depth about everything. Some of the conflicts that I have is the limited insertion choices. You're either halo jumping out of a chopper, or you're driving up to a location when there are so many other options of insertions that we have available to us, like something that I think Mama Bird tipped off on, being able to fast rope from choppers. Because sometimes, we don't need to jump from 1,000 meters in the air. Sometimes it's more sensible and quicker for us to just be dropped off on a rooftop and being able to insert from there. In addition, we're on an island that has so much water access, so many riverways, so much open water and whatnot, and the option for amphibious insertions are retarded. Like, can we get the option to go underwater and swim and get actual amphibious insertions added to this? One of the biggest things that I gripe about for the longest, and Rec will attest to this, is why don't we have friendly fire?
Every day.
Oh,
I
every
think
day.
Every
when
day.
when you have a game that's supposed to emulate a tactical third-person shooter, and you take out elements like that, you reduce the capacity of operating tactically as a unit. You know, because when I play with the Milsim squad, even though we know friendly fire is not a thing, we still try to adhere to principles of friendly fire just for the sense of realism in that aspect. We feel that we should have that available to us. The other thing is, this game has such a open reign of terrain in this island, and there's such limited options on traversing it. On traversing mountains, we should be able to rappel, we should be able to zip line, we should be able to do all these things that we actually do in the military in order to traverse these strenuous terrains, and we don't have those options available to us. Instead, we literally can run uphill up a mountain so long as it's not steep enough. And then the addition of, you know, when you're trying to vault over something that you should be able to vault over based on its height in contrast to you, yet for some reason you can't vault over it, that is extremely frustrating.
We can't even get out the water sometimes on a from a very shallow bit of water.
The detention centers pools. The detention center pools. Don't even try and get in them.
My favorite is having to climb a 3-inch ledge.
Shark base.
I think another.
Get stuck in a rock.
Yeah.
Or invisible walls with trees.
I think another essential thing that they're missing, you know, every Ghost Recon game has been, you know, fire team element. We want squad-based elements.
Exactly.
We want platoon-based elements. We want more players in the mix, so that way we can add other things like roles and whatnot. Like how do we have, you know, such capabilities in the military that you don't see here? We should have our infantry being able to communicate and liaison with our FOs to relay messages to our kings of battle, so that way they can drop in heavy ordnance and things like that, things that we don't have available to us. Be able to call in Medevac. Our injury system is redundant. Like it's baffling to me how it's the same 3 injuries when you're injured. You go critical. You should be Medevac when you're in a critical condition because you'd be too critical to continue combating the enemies. So that would be a sensible time to introduce something like the ability to Medevac teammates out of the fight. And then also, you know, the aspect of that larger element brings in other things into play, like the ability to create patrol bases and things like that, so that we can move assets into position. So that way, when we are, you know, securing a base or whatever the objective is or whatnot, we have assets readily available to mobilize and move out on a moment's notice. So that way we can bring more to the fight than just our guns and the equipment that we have in our packs. Another baffling thing to me is, how is it that, you know, the game takes this non-guided approach, which was actually something that I actually enjoyed in the beginning until I started to think about this more, because its non-guided approach was it would essentially give you a series of clues in order to locate a location. And I was just wondering, why do we have such an intricate terrain map without grid points or grid coordinates?
Oh my God, yes.
Thank you very much.
We should have grid coordinates, because we could simplify all that guessing game about, you know, this location is between this mountain off of this ledge and this and that and the other. If you just give us a damn grid coordinate and allow us to traverse the terrain as we see fit. Also, you know, I know that Mama Bird went in on the whole flight aspect, but I'm very frustrated with it as well. The what I equate it to is flying an RC chopper, because it is nothing like actually being on a chopper or anything of that sort of nature. I had the privilege of being on a chopper, gunning from a chopper and whatnot, and there are so many elements that come into play with it that it lacks severely in this game. And one of the most frustrating things to me is how you have such a high caliber weapon sitting on the side of that door gun, and it takes 100+ rounds through an enemy in order to take them out. Yet they're sitting down below you and putting the most accurate shots on you while you're in the air, strafing across and shooting at them. Yet they're able to hit you accurately, and you can't hit them to save your fucking life.
Don't you know? Don't you know, Hunter? 50 cals ain't that big.
Hey, mention friend or foe of the whole thing, flying over. Oh, hey, that's enemy helicopter. I've seen a lot of helicopters, and not once have I seen them fly over my head. I can go, hey, that's John.
Yeah. And speaking of caliber, one thing that extremely frustrates me is seeing the weapons in the game and how they're mischaracterized for the caliber of weapon that they actually are. Like, for example, I see one of my favorite SMGs, the Honey Badger. In this game, it is classified as a 7.62. I don't know about you guys, but I've never seen an SMG in my life classified as a 7.62.
Nope.
And that is completely baffling to me, because you hear guys talking about, I like to pick the Honey Badger because it's a 7.62, and I just sit there like, no, it's not.
Not in real life.
No, not in real life.
Yeah, but see, you got a lot of young kids, and I'm going to reference the mature age reference because it's supposed to be purchased by adults. So I'm going to reference the 18 and starting 18-year-olds. So they don't even know about the weapons unless they've been introduced to it via a family member or somewhat of the sort. So a lot of people are getting their weaponology through video games, and this is what they're going off of.
Yeah, well, they're being misled by a company that doesn't know weapons themselves.
Well, I mean, I totally agree on that, and I do believe Jeremy, Tyrant Slayer, and Bullet, they did an extensive video about the weaponology and Breakpoint. So,
most SMGs are sub calibers, so they're 9mm 45, and then you got some some oddballs like the 5.7s, but they're not typically rifle calibers. They're pistol caliber, or I like to call them boutique rounds, because that's basically what they are. But the Honey Badger in real life is a 300 Blackout.
Yeah.
It is a 7.62, but that squarely belongs in the ASR. Squarely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'd like to. Can I just say something off of your point, Hunter? Just really quickly. I know you want to probably say a few more things. So you were just talking about before that about the fact that what are they doing, referencing Ubisoft. Let's just discuss that. We have discussed it briefly on a previous podcast, but I'm interested to get your take on it. So Emile Dubon is an ex-Green Beret, and he was the military consultant, but also, I believe, was also one of the writers for the game as well. Now, do you think that he just spun them a yarn, or do you think that they just weren't listening to him? What do you think went wrong? But you've got someone who's an ex-Green Beret who should have plenty of experience of all of the things I would imagine that you've spoken about so far. What happened? Why didn't they listen? Or do you think they did listen and just went, no, we can't do that? Does anyone have an opinion on that?
Well, based on the fact that Ubisoft claims to listen to its fans and whatnot and what we want in the game, and yet put out an update that handles nothing of what we want, I would probably go on record to say that they probably didn't take him seriously. If they sincerely had a Green Beret as an advisor to them, then they were in good hands. So I don't understand how they botched this so bad when they had an asset like that under their belt helping them with this, especially if he had a say in the writing aspect and whatnot, because these are things that Green Berets specialize in. They're sort of a jack of all trades in that sense, and they bring a lot of knowledge to the table across the board through all MOSs under Green Berets. Because they're obligated to learn each other's MOSs despite not actually being that MOS. And for the listeners who don't know, MOSs correlate to our jobs in the military. So basically, when you have somebody who is a subject matter expert on multifaceted, unconventional warfare, things of that sort of nature, you should have a really high level third person tactical shooter, which Breakpoint quite isn't in that realm. So, you know, if they sincerely had a Green Beret under their belt, then I would go on record and say either they didn't listen to him or he didn't have as much of a participation or a say in it as we would like to believe.
All
More
right,
game
well,
versus reality versus cost effectiveness versus, all of that.
What they should have did was just went on ahead and paid the money for Dale Die, and we'd have had a real game.
well,
No.
you
Alright, can I say
guys are
something?
gonna force me to be the guy that defends Ubisoft here, but I honestly don't think that he fed them a line of bullshit, right? I don't think that's the case at all. And B, I don't think that they just ignored him. Here's what I think happened. This happens a lot in movies and in games. Anything where creative freedoms can be brought into play. Odds are likely that they intended to put these things in there. They put it in front of the playtesters. The playtesters came back and said, this is too hard. I can't figure this out. It's too many button presses, whatnot, and they dumbed it down. So, like I said, odds are he didn't give them a line of bullshit, and the odds are that they didn't completely ignore him. But the odds are highly likely that a creative director stepped in and said, look, we're getting bad feedback on this, and we need to change it and make it simpler. And then just started taking some creative freedoms with it.
I would say
I
you are
think,
probably spot on, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Can I add
I'm with
something?
Byron on this one.
But to change the caliber of a weapon is one thing.
Yeah, I'd have to go back. Like, okay, cool. If you need to dumb it down, not everybody will understand or get or be able. I don't want to sound mean, but comprehend some of the things that a Green Beret might feed to them. Going into game tester, it might be a little too hard, but never change the caliber of a weapon to something that it's not. That
I
it's like
can't
along the
defend
lines
that.
of
I think
fabricating
that's just ignorance right there. I think they probably started off with some very basic weapons. They probably started off with maybe 4 in each category, and then they said, well, we need to add some value to this. Let's start throwing some of these others in. And they just took pictures and they just went with what they thought would be appropriate, not necessarily what is correct.
And Jeremy, did they then use the dartboard of damage?
Yes, the dartboard of damage is probably used as well.
Can I just
I'm going to copyright that term.
Sorry,
Dave.
just really quickly before we go any further, can I just introduce Gun Nerd has also jumped on. He was a little bit late to the party, but he's jumped on. Can you hear us, Gun Nerd? I think you can.
I've got you loud and clear.
Buddy, could you just introduce yourself just really quickly and your military background just quickly?
There's really not much. I just made it to Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps. I was a electrical equipment systems technician, so I didn't see any real action. I mostly saw what came back, and that's really it. I can only give a casual perspective on anything that's said in here.
Cool, you still served, buddy. We still appreciate it. Thank you. Well, feel free to join in. Feel free. So, sorry, Mike, you were saying?
Semper Fi, brother.
So, Mike, what was you saying beforehand?
I was going to touch on what was said about what was going on with the Green Beret versus what's going on with the Ubisoft and that respect on that. this is just my insight on it, what probably most likely probably happened. Just simple. Too many chiefs, not enough Indians in the story.
I can see
You
that.
you may very well be spot on that one actually.
Look
Spot
at the
on.
credits and see how many managers and stuff like that of every single department that's on that game. It's ridiculous. And that's probably 9 times out of 10 the reason why we have a lot of the issues that's going on with the game since day one, and why they released it way too early when it wasn't really honed in and brushed up enough to really give it a good showing when it debuted. Hell, it debuted with freaking issues.
Yeah, well, again, that's corporatism,
Major
right?
issues.
They have a timeline that they're supposed to meet. They didn't make it, so they cut some corners. And once the game came out and it failed hard,
and I agree with that.
They reeled back, and they didn't want to put a hell of a lot of money and effort into it anymore, because I don't think they ever had a failure quite like that.
I think people are forgetting as well that this game was probably put together very quickly. I mean, if you think from when Wildlands came out to the year 2 kind of DLC stuff that we got, you know, obviously they would have started this game before the Wildlands DLC, but you're not talking about a particularly long, huge amount of time here. You're talking about a very short amount of time in the world of games development anyway, that this game suddenly just appeared. Now, we know that they use assets from Wildlands, like boats and things like that have appeared in both games and other such things. But it's still a very short amount of time to have put this game together. And I think when we all saw the trailer and we saw about the survival mechanics, it really did kind of wet people's lips. They were like, this is what we wanted in Wildlands. And then obviously they realized the drones and all the rest of it, and they really didn't go into that.
Right. During launch they had talked about a 2-year development window on it. Now that is not a lot. Most AAA games, you're looking at 3 to 4 years of development before it's prepped to go gold, and these guys were talking 2 years, so they had roughly half the time.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, Hunter mentioned something a minute ago that, funnily enough, we were discussing before the podcast went live. So I thought we'd bring it up again. Hunter, and I know someone else mentioned it as well. I think it was you, Rick, about the friendly fire issue. Now, there's certain things that are in the raid, for example, like like friendly fire. There's also mines down on the ground and things like that. Why do you not think that they haven't used some of those or implemented some of those? There's also the bleed out system on the raid as well, on the critical raid. This is all of these systems exist in the game on the raid. Why have they not moved those or added those into the main game? It doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah, I agree with you there, man. It's funny that you mentioned that, because that was one of the things on my list here.
Well, I have an opinion on that too.
Yeah, like it adds a whole other element to the game, especially when you're, talking about dealing with traps like IEDs and whatnot. Then you give a purpose to like an explosive ordnance tech and whatnot, and it would bring a whole other level of realism and tactical disadvantages in the game that if we had those things available to us. And it's sort of baffling to me how these things are available in the raid, but they aren't available in the game. I don't understand that, especially when these are things that players are able to pick up on and complete these raids and whatnot with these parameters. So why can't they be available to us in the standard game?
Here's a comment that one of our listeners posted in the game ideas based on Hunter. Instead of being able to bandage critical injuries and start shooting right away. This is from Lynx, by the way. Make a critical injury actual critical. For this, it would be nice to have an AI Medevac that could be called in at any time. The time it would take to get to your position would depend on how far you are away from Erewhon, and if there's any turrets, SAMs near the LZ. Imagine shooting something like the heli from a Metal Gear Solid 5, getting you to Erewhon to be treated.
Ooh, I like that.
That's
Yeah,
a really good
there's,
idea.
Yeah.
there's a lot of problems with that though, from the game design perspective. Now you're talking about someone who's taking a critical hit that's basically useless, and if that chopper takes 5 minutes to reach you from Erewhon, say you're at the farthest reaches, you're the very topmost part of the map. That's you being out of commission for 5 minutes, doing nothing, right? And then the potential of them arriving and taking flak from the ground, that means the extra time for your team to go out and eliminate those assets so that those choppers can come in and pick up the wounded. From a gameplay design perspective, there's no quicker way to lose players than to
I
do
would
that.
say
Yep, that's
have
true.
yeah, very true on that level. But I would also say have, instead of just Erewhon, you claim up one of these Cold War sites that at least resembles a military base. There's one in restricted area 1. It's just north of the dam. It has communications and everything else. It's got a 2-level system. You can claim that and say, okay, this is my area 1 midfield base. If you claim an airfield, now that is yours until overran, or something, or
this
something
is
of like that.
Or
this
why
is
not?
something that
Yeah, it's
I
grand scale
mentioned a
capture
little
the
bit.
flag.
Yeah.
Well, why not? Why not, instead of not only just that though, they brought in resistance. You have the outcasts, so why not amp that up just a little bit and go from just Erewhon or say just Cold War sites, and the resistance bases being able to also send out a chopper. I mean, they're taking over old Wolf Sentinel bases. You would think they'd want to keep some of that hardware, like a Helo, stuff like that. Why not make them be able to send up a Medevac quick, fast, and in a hurry to get you guys out of there?
Mhm.
Well,
But
despite that, though, one of the things that we mentioned a little bit earlier was also, setting up patrol bases, fobs, and whatnot, where we could actually establish a FARP and actually have air assets on standby in a nearby location that would significantly cut that time down. So
yes.
that way we wouldn't have to adhere to something like that. The only thing we would have to do is just spend the time to establish that forward operating position where we can have those assets available to us. So to me, that brings another level of play with military strategy involved into it, as it would be in reality.
And this is all assuming that you have a larger team anyway, right? I mean,
You
I
would need
wouldn't
that.
assume you wouldn't have this
Typically,
at
yeah.
a foreign level team. I mean, because if you're going to bring Medevac into a combat zone, you've got to
You're gonna
have
need URL.
escorts. You're going to have the escorts. Then you're going to have to have ground forces to secure the LZ. There's a lot that goes into that to make sure that Medevac gets in safe and leaves safe.
Yeah.
Because
I think that needs to be supported with a combination of players and AI. Like a QRF force to help secure the ground. Players that want to participate in the medevac aspect, from the flight crew aspect to the ground forces and whatnot. So this is something that would definitely need, like, at minimum, a platoon size element to support that in actual gameplay.
Now you're looking at Arma.
Yeah, and then of course you have the fact that you've got to be able to put these soldiers in the back of this medevac helicopter. You've got to have a flight medic in there that's going to be able to keep them alive on the flight back. You've got more on that side anyway. You've got more to think about than just a helicopter that comes and picks people up and takes them somewhere to get good to go.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
and
go ahead and
to kind of piggyback a little bit off of that, it kind of ties into one of the other things that I was thinking about when Mama Bird mentioned about the flight medic and how the injury system and the medic. The medic should have a little more intricate of a role play to this, being in the sense of what are they dealing with that casualty? What kind of wounds has a casualty suffered? what kind of tactical field care needs to be provided, and things like this. Just these small elements that give a little more give a little more
Depth.
intricacy to that role. Yeah, a little more depth to it.
Yeah,
That would be appreciated.
I mean,
Of an MPA in his nose.
even
And-
with what we got in the game right now, the medic role, that's just a basic combat medic.
Yeah.
He's just there to just heal you up, get you back into the fight. Now, true enough, the Medevacs, the bird docs, and then once you get to Air One or whatever base, then that's when. But another comment came in, asked them if you're critically injured, you can't be healed until you reach a bivouac.
That was from Winter Gamer. I was just going to ask that, so well done, Marcus.
Mm-hmm.
That's not actually a bad idea, though, is it?
I mean, yeah. So my take on that would be if you had, let's say a platoon size situation, and you had, some people that were air support, i.e., that it's combat choppers, or if it's medevac, or troop carriers, whatever Airbus, it doesn't matter, whatever. And then you've got your ground crews, then you've got your support, maybe you've got a talk back there, whatever you got, you've got to be able to run out of these points that are nearby. And that would be, that exact thing. It could be Air One, it could be any of those campsites, it could be, maybe there's opportunity to take over these bunkers, like they said earlier. Whatever you have to do, but maybe you have to do these things and set them up prior to this big battle that you plan on taking on, or something like that. I mean, that's how I would envision it anyway.
I think that would fall back onto forward operating bases and
Right, yeah.
roaming bases, mobile bases, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can
This is-
even have a person that represents a MASH unit or something. I mean, I know that's kind of outdated, but you know what I mean.
This is all something
I've
with
got something.
two
I've
Tom
got something
Clancy
I
for a
wanna ask
Tom
you.
Clancy game.
Yeah, well, that's truth.
I've got something that I'd like to ask all of you, just in general, really. So, you were mentioning about the kind of capture the flag almost, or being able to go and take a base, and once you've taken it, it's yours. Do you think that that is the type of thing that the community would like to see added into the game? Do you think that would be something that, if it was added, that would kind of add a new dynamic, a new way to play the game? Is that something you think people would get people back?
I think
Are you
more
kidding
realistic
me?
players would.
Well,
Yeah.
I would say
We mentioned it before.
I would say yes, because believe it or not, over with our Milsim team at Task Force Guardian, we implement some of these things within the parameters of the game. When we do custom ops and things like that, we have what we call our prep phase, where we're securing a forward operating base or a patrol base, or creating a hasty fighting position in which we're establishing assets. We're role playing the call for fire support, call for medevac, different things like that. And these things are readily available to us, and we're able to do it in a relatively reasonable timing, and within the parameters of the game now. And I think Rec is one of the guys who's participated in our ops, and he would agree that these things flow well, and they bring a degree of depth that actually kind of makes it more fun in a sense. So
I wouldn't even say a degree of depth, more or less a degree of nostalgia. Like when we do the forward operating bases, when we're actually doing our actual ops, you get, at least for those of us veteran types, it brings a sense of home in a way, and you just get super comfortable, and it brings a smile to my face, even though it's just a video game. I it's like a memory flashback. Just the nostalgia of it is just great.
And I mean,
The only
also, it's just fun, period. Like
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it every single time. And the feedback that I get from the guys all the time, because every time we complete an op, we do an after action review and we get feedback from the guys and whatnot. and everybody enjoys it. So it's like if across the board so far we're seeing a lot of enjoyment from everybody, I don't think it would be crazy to believe that, you know, others would actually enjoy that aspect as well. And this isn't something that has to be like, you know, a whole hour spent doing this before you attack a main mission. We knock that prep phase out in under 30 minutes, no problem, you know? So
And it's
this
the
isn't...
It's not
Go
even.
ahead.
Oh,
No, go ahead.
The only problem I could see with this happening is that it would start to suffer from, I call it Far Cry syndrome, where you have all these outposts that you have to clear out, and then it just gets repetitive after the first day. That seems to be the only thing I could see I could go wrong with this.
Well, the way I
Well,
envision it,
I think from a gaming concept, you look around at a lot of the games now, and I mentioned GTA earlier, so I'm gonna keep picking on those guys. You know, you have these places that you can buy that you can have for your own, right? And that's not the only game that does that. There are a lot of games out there that have, you know, personal spaces or whatever. And this is basically what that is. That allows you to get a forward operating base for whatever it is, and maybe it's instance, maybe it's not, whatever the case may be. But you know, this is a concept that is out in the gaming world that people do enjoy, and they buy games. Some people buy games because of it, you know. So I don't think that it's a concept that's too wild, personally.
It works really well in the Division 2, actually. Whether you
Yes,
like
exactly.
the Division 2
Exactly.
or not, it does work really, really well. There's no reason why they couldn't utilize a very similar system to that to make it work effectively.
well, I didn't play
You know, I
the,
was actually...
I played the Division, but not Division 2, and the way I see this, the way I would envision it working, and to keep everyone involved and keep everyone busy, right, so it doesn't become boring, is each of these four-man teams that we're individually on are just a squad in a much larger effort, being the whole community. So we could go and we could you know, acquire a new base through force, right, and then we take it and that becomes ours, and then we have to maintain that as a community, and make sure that does not get overran. While we are also tasked with going out and expanding our territory as well. As the larger your territory becomes, the harder it becomes to maintain that, because you're constantly getting, you know, threats from the outside coming in on places that you've established long ago.
I would like that.
Yeah.
Me
On
too.
top, to caveat off of that, this kind of hit me, and I like that. I love that. I like the idea of the community interactive. What they do, what someone else does somewhere affects the game as a whole. But also, we're talking. So you talking outside threats, and we have to maintain those bases. Something that I think would be a great challenge. I don't want to, maybe not a challenge, but maybe a good upgrade, um, is integrating something like Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War with the Nemesis AI system, where the AI actually learns from you, actually thinks, can plan, can set traps, ambushes, stuff like integrating something of a learning AI into the enemy to where it's not. I mean, I know Hunter can attest to me. We've been in bases where we saw a heavy spin around in circles for like 5 minutes straight before we decided just to mercy kill him. Granted, it was probably a glitch, but it after a while, and I think anyone who plays the game enough can tell. After a while, each archetype or each base even will have a very generic routine, a very generic patrol pattern. Whereas in Mordor and Shadow of War, that Nemesis AI, there was nothing like that. You could be out in the open 1 minute, and the next thing you know, you're crossing under a bridge and you just got set up for a trap, and they spring it on you.
Yeah, I really like where you're going with this. The other thing about the Nemesis
I do too.
is bringing up Shadow Mordor. They promote from within, so they build up through their own ranks too. So we could have fresh bosses all the time. You defeat one, and another guy rises up through the ranks and becomes the next boss. We would constantly have new bosses all the time.
It's a
Yeah.
really good idea.
See, something else too is that for every counter that the enemy is able to throw at us, we should be able to do the same back at them. So if they're able to place freaking traps and booby traps and freaking claymores, mines, whatever, we should be able to do the same thing on that aspect that everybody else is hitting on about taking over a base and holding it and expanding it. Within expanding, you're securing. How can we secure something when we place freaking mines and stuff and you leave the game? Guess what? It goes gone. Or if you leave in an area outside the 550 parameter, of the game, there goes your mines. Or you place too many mines and it takes it away.
Actually, your assets for mines and stuff, they won't despawn until you're 900 meters away. They've kind of that's kind of a plus point on that.
That's changed with the update, so that hasn't always been the case.
Sure.
No, it definitely wasn't. I mean, can I just raise it? So you're talking about this AI system, which sounds amazing, and I have played Shadow of Mordor, so I get what you mean. But I mean, even if they were like, look, we're not going to implement that, even just an upgraded AI. I mean, if anyone's ever played First Encounter Assault Recon or Fear or whatever you want to call it, the enemy AI in Fear was devastating. They would flank you. They would come at you from all positions. When you were pushing forward, they were trying to find ways to get behind you and kill you. Just anything really that is better than what we currently have. I mean, as you just said, I think it was you, Rec, that just said about the patrol patterns that the bases currently have. I mean, if anyone's ever played Far Cry 5, and on Far Cry 5, you can go in and create your own maps. You can literally go and set up characters to do patrols around your created maps. And in all fairness, I swear that is what they are using in Breakpoint. It's that simplistic of having the men walk around the bases as they do, and then they'll split, turn around, go back. That's pretty much all they do in Breakpoint.
Yeah, it's a loop basically script.
Yeah, it's basically what you can go and set your own characters up to do in this very small portion of Far Cry 5 on the customizable maps. So you do expect more than that, to be fair. You expect a lot more than that. I mean, we've talked about some improvements here, and we've talked about some things that,
Andy, before you jump off of that, of our guests, how many of you guys have played Wildlands?
Oh yeah.
We've all played it, I think.
Yeah, I think we've all played it here.
So imagine now Breakpoint with the Unidad forces on a 4-star level.
Are you talking about the Fallen Ghost level part of it, or are you talking about both the Unidad and the Fallen Ghost combined?
I'm just referencing just the Unidad alone.
He's talking, he's talking about the escalation system.
As heck.
On a 4-star level.
If the wolves were
the
basically
escalation
acted
system.
like Unidad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes.
Both with the Unidad and the Fallen Ghost.
I was about to say, Unidad was one going into Wildlands. I would just leave. At the end of it, I would just leave them alone. They come in, I'd even back out. You have them. Go ahead. I'll sit here and wait. Like, or 4-star Unidad was nothing to shake a stick at.
I remember.
Yeah, right.
I can't remember exactly what base it was, but me and my 3 buddies, we were in there. 2 of us were former military, and 2 were not. And it took us an hour and a half just to even get away.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's
I think a lot of people would like to see that system come back, and the wolves kind of utilize that type of system, the kind of alert system, effectively, to see more armored vehicles, more helicopters. I mean, I'm sure people have seen it. You're in Wildlands, you can have sometimes 4 or 5 helicopters coming after you once you reach that top level. It's crazy trying to get away, but that's what Breakpoint should have been about: survival. It sometimes
what they marketed it to be like.
Absolutely.
I mean,
but look,
I would have liked to have Breakpoint already on that 4-star level and made it an 8-star. Now you on real survival level.
God Christ.
See, when they
That's
dropped it, I thought it had more of a seer, well,
Search and rescue or
no,
Survival,
survive,
evasion,
survive,
evasion,
evade,
escapes.
resist.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yup.
Yeah, and that doesn't really exist in the game, does it?
No, it
So-
don't.
That's
Everything's
all.
everything's given to you. You don't really fight for it. It's already pre-established, basically. And that kind of takes away from that experience of you're dropped behind enemy lines. They just shot your chopper out of the sky. They just dome piece to your squad mates, at a minimum to your squad mates dead. Like it
Mhm.
just takes away from it all.
Well, listen, look, we've talked about some improvements that we'd like to see, a lot of suggestions. We've talked about a lot of the things that don't work, the things that are missing. So let's concentrate a little bit on the things maybe that the game does do right. So from a military perspective, are there things in the game that you go, do you know what? Fair play, they got that right. Are there any?
I mean, just from my limited experience being a lance corporal, the one thing I always make a joke about is that the most realistic part of the game is the banter you hear between the patrolling sentinel soldiers. I got to give that one a thumbs up.
20 for his head.
Man, I just want to go home. I got 3 more months of this. Like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
The
I
funny
remember
ones
going
are
through the. I remember going through the wilderness one time, and I was listening to these guards, and one of them was like, "Man, I could be in my hooch right now watching a movie." I was like, "Man, that sounds a lot like me." One time.
Or them talking shit about the damn friggin' heavy gunner or the new sharpshooter that they got, and then
Yeah.
he ends up dying.
Yeah. Or man, I go home next week, and you're like, yeah, that's not happening.
my favorite one. My favorite one is when you kill a guy and they're like, "Oh my God, he killed Goose," and you're kind of sitting there laughing.
Sammy.
Who the
new
hell's
guy's
named
dead.
Goose? They got Joey. Yeah.
I mean, I like the ideas of that. They do have all the banter, but the team itself needs some. If you're playing 4-man squad alone with the AI teammates, Wildlands had better conversational jokes.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Well, Wildlands had teammates from the very start.
Hi, here. I need some cocaine.
Yeah.
For the elk dude?
What was the one between Nomad and Weaver? Oh yeah, hey, you see that boat? Yeah, we could steal that boat. No, we
Yeah.
could steal that boat. Like,
I remember that.
You want that
Yeah,
boat,
that was
don't
a great one.
you? Oh, yeah.
It
That was a
seems to
great
me like
one.
the AI teammates were so much of an afterthought when they released this game.
yeah.
Well,
It
they
was
were.
because,
Felt
it
more
was,
connected to your
afterthought.
team in
it was
Wildlands for
because
sure.
everybody wanted them, and just because they couldn't survive by themselves. I played the game since day one, and I pretty much did the game, with human teammates versus AI teammates. Now, true enough, when my friends weren't on, I played it by myself, and I pretty much did it. But I'm not going to say I played it on extreme at that time, but it was at least advanced.
I mean, it's not that difficult to play it by yourself. I mean, come on.
I agree. It's
Yeah.
relatively easy.
You
I
know,
played by myself for the longest, like the first maybe 400 hours of my gameplay I played alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Actually,
honestly, when Wildlands gave you the ability to remove the teammates, that's what I was actually waiting for.
I think a lot of people were, to be honest. They wanted to see how the game ran as well without them. But at the same time, I think there was a lot of people who played Wildlands from its entirety with AI teammates. And sometimes it's because, as we've mentioned before, they just couldn't find very good matchmaking. They didn't have friends who had the game. Sometimes they would get randoms jump into their game and it would be a complete disaster. They wouldn't do what they did, or they would team kill them or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that's why a lot of people did use AI teammates. And I think it's those people that wanted AI teammates. And when it comes down to it, if we get a new game, which I'm hoping will be Wildlands 2, I think that's what everyone wants. But if we get a new game, AI teammates, I agree, they should be in there, but they should they should be in there at the beginning, and you should be able to turn them off from the very beginning.
Yep.
Both games have got it wrong. Wildlands, you couldn't turn them off at the beginning, and Breakpoint, Didn't have them at the beginning. We just need both of those options available right from the get-go. So if you want to play on your own, you can. If you want to play with teammates, you can. You want to play with friends, you can. And hopefully you'll be able to play with more friends, because realistically we need, I think, 8-man teams, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's a lesson learned, right? So they've had 2 chances at this. They went all in on one way, then they went all out on the other way. I think they know now that right off the bat they're going to have adjustable teammates right off the bat. So I don't think that's going to be an issue.
I mean, even if you have the option, maybe not necessarily turning them all off, but at least having 1 or 2, give the option like they do now in Breakpoint.
Yeah, I want to be able to backfill the squad when I only have 2 players.
Yeah, that took them a year and a half to put that in. This is, once again, yes, I agree with you that it should be there, but it should be there at the beginning. And once again, you also need to be able to have a lot more orders if you like AI teammates. But, you know, to me, and this came up before, one of the things that showed that Ubisoft were out of touch with the community was when they turned around and said, you will not have to micromanage your AI teammates. So many people were like, you don't understand the people playing your game, because they want to micromanage their AI teammates. Well, they don't want that taken away from them.
It should be optional. Micromanage them or let them go on their own.
Yeah. Once again, that's the best option. The more options you can have is the best option for the game. Full stop.
And if they're going, oh my bad, man.
Oh, sorry. They give you hand signals, but what good are they in the game?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They're trying to market. Ubisoft is trying to market to the largest audience possible, trying to draw as many people as they can, but they're leaving the original community back in the dust, sort of, is the way I see it.
Right, which kind of brings us back full circle to that question of, I can't remember how you worded it, but why did they do certain things in the critical raid that they didn't do in the regular game? And that's exactly what Gunnar is referring to. I think the regular game, as it was envisioned, was designed to cater to the largest amount of audience that they possibly could, lowest common denominator, to make as much money as they could. A lot of the things that we're asking for here are pretty hardcore, and I don't think we're ever going to see a game that's just pure hardcore like that. There's going to have to be some concessions.
But yeah, technically, when Wildlands came out, it was in of itself pretty hardcore at the beginning, and that ended up being one of the best games.
Right, but they also loosened it a bit too at some points. So it was fairly accessible. It could have been bigger. I mean, it was a successful game. Doesn't make it a platinum game. So.
I think that the Wildlands sold more on the credit that it was a Tom Clancy game, that it was the first ever open world Tom Clancy game is really what was its claim to fame. That really got it to sell.
I mean, really, Wildlands, there were some difficult bits in the game, but if you actually just paid attention and kept your head on a swivel, it was pretty easy, honestly. At least for me.
Yeah, I didn't have any problems getting through the game at all. It wasn't until Tier 1 came along where they gave us some of these more hardcore options that it became more difficult.
And then Ghost Mode, a lot of people enjoyed Ghost Mode, but obviously Ghost Mode frustrated the hell out of me, because every time I failed Ghost Mode, it was never because I was killed by an enemy combatant. I was always run over by a car.
Well, I think what that was the community thought they wanted permadeath, but they didn't really.
They took a no from GTA on that one, huh?
Yeah, they did.
Big time. Big time. But so is there any other good points then? I mean, when we mentioned the good points, we literally had one. I mean, there must be something else that they do well from a military kind of perspective.
Their attempt of getting us to be able to go down in our prone to merge in with the foreground.
The prone camo.
You know, I love that, but they could have done so much more with that, you know, and they didn't. You know, like for instance, freaking the ghillie suit. You know, in real life you're constantly modifying it to to look at the area you're going to be going into, where you're going to be doing your main operation at. You know, these guys freaking spend countless of hours just low crawling to get as closest to their AI instructor without being detected, you know,
Mm-hmm.
in
Down there
order
in
to get
Fort Benning.
certified. You know,
Down there at Fort Benning. Yep.
Fort Benning and out in 29 Palms when it was field testing some of the new snipers and stuff, and freaking I sat there and watched them from the road from afar, seeing what they were doing. Man, these guys were excellent. And I get on this game, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be kind of cool. And then sometimes it'll blend in and sometimes it won't. Some freaking camouflage works and some don't. Some takes on the mud or the snow or the foliage and it doesn't. But yet when I kneel down, hell, my damn knee and the tip of my gun freaking blends in better than what I'm wearing. You know.
Well, another
But at
aspect
the
I
same
think
time,
they.
I can see.
Go ahead, Mike.
I can see where they went with it, and I wished that they would have took away the spotting with the drone a little bit more and added it to the binoculars. The binoculars to me was more homage to, you know, spotting and everything else. I can understand about the freaking drone and everything, but at the same token, the game was just way too heavy on one side. You know, it wasn't well rounded.
You have to say.
It's.
Oh, go
But
ahead, man. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm good. You go ahead.
Yeah, going off actual one thing. We bagged on how they did the weapons, but the one thing I think they did well was the looks, the detail in these weapons. Now they might have not had like some for some of us gun nuts, they might not have had the correct names, but for a good portion of these weapons, I can like actually tell what they are like in real life. Like I know in the game there's a CZP07 variant. It's not named that. I know it's not, but I mean, definitely just by looking at it, the detail that they did put into it, even the customization, all the way down to being able to mess with your trigger assembly. Like, I thought they did really, really well on that. Like, I tip my hat to them on it.
I agree.
I can definitely see the effort put into the guns. It looks like they actually had models to look at when they were designing these things, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah, because I get comments all the time on my photos. Oh man, that part's in Breakpoint. I'm like, well, you know, that part's been around for 10 years, but yeah, it is in Breakpoint.
Yeah, they did.
And they did a really good job. So,
apart from when
Sandy,
Sandy,
go ahead.
Sandy discovered a few of them were based on airsoft rifles, didn't he?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But another aspect that I think they did a really good job in, and it's kind of touch and go sometimes, is the atmosphere. If you get in a very heavy combat situation and there's explosives going off and bullets flying by, you know, there's smoke in the air, you can't see shit, you know, the ringing in your ears of all the shit going off around you, they do a really good job of that atmosphere. Now that's kind of few and far between, but then on the other side of the non-combat atmospheres, when you're up in the mountains at night and you're watching the clouds go by the moon, and listening to the animals in the forest and things like that, I think they do a really good job with that. I think they.
Hey, you went stargazing?
Can't lay on your back.
I do agree with you,
This man's contemplating the answers of the universe.
Yeah, he can't lay on the one thing that none the Sentinels or Wolves do that the Sicario and the Unidad did was go to sleep at night.
Agreed.
Yeah, they did, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that you mention it.
Take a nap so I can get you.
Yeah, you could actually throw a grenade in the barracks base in Wildlands and kill all of them.
Yep, you could.
And then here you got to go all the way around. Yeah, or beat them to death.
The one thing I miss from Wildlands, though, Santa, Blanca.
Oh yeah.
That's long.
Sicario radio.
Oh God, yes. Oh God.
And then no matter where you're at in Sonic Block, you always hear that freaking medieval excruciating laugh of this female somewhere, and I've always been looking for her, and I could never find her.
Have you ever heard? Have you ever heard? Oh, I have actually mentioned this on a couple of my previous videos. Have you ever heard there is a specific type of there is a not all the females in the game, but there's one specific lady in the game, and if you shoot a weapon near her, she makes some noises like she's enjoying herself.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
is when they recorded
yeah.
that, someone must have been laughing in the studio and gone, "Oh my god, that's
pornographic
terrible."
moans.
It literally is like, yeah, it's like porn noises. It is not like she does not sound terrified at all.
Yeah, it's like they had one too many bloopers and they're like, screw it, just put it in.
Yeah, I really think it was like, I'll put it in for a joke anyway. But so is there anything else then that they did get right? What about like vehicles? You know, you said that the helicopters, no, lots of people complain that the driving in Breakpoint is not good. Any of you guys think that that's true, or do you think the
I think the
driving?
driving. I think the driving could potentially be great if the vehicles weighed more than 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that.
It'd be good if
or
I
at
could hit a
least
turn.
go up the mountain a bit more easier.
I don't know how many
Yeah,
times I've hit a rock and bounced
I said
180
it
years
there.
backwards.
No, I kind of like some of the aspects where it actually makes sense that you hit a gradation so steep that the vehicle actually can't get up it. The only thing that I think also on the driving is when I drive, I'm a very complicated driver. I like when I'm going fast, I like to hit my turns and I like to rip that e-brake and drift that, keep that momentum and go. But every so often, I'll hit a certain vehicle and I'll rip that e-brake and all of a sudden I'm halfway down the mountain getting thrown and it's like, oh well, okay.
Mhm.
I
Or
think
you hit the eject button by accident.
Just go Cedo.
I think one thing that should also be taken into account with the vehicles is when the vehicle is up armor, it should actually deflect rounds.
Yeah.
Because, in reality,
yeah.
when
Oh,
we're
yeah.
in an up armored vehicle, we could sit there taking rounds for days and it won't penetrate.
Or
But
even an RPG, like when me and you were doing ground mobility and I took that RPG hit in an APC and it blew me up.
yeah,
Like,
That's a really good point, actually. Really good point. Well, look, we've been going for about an hour and a half, so we will start to wind it down now. Does anyone have any kind of points that they really wanted to get out that they haven't had an opportunity to do so and would like to do so now before we kind of start to finish off?
The only
guess-
thing that sorry.
no, go ahead, Ashley. Go ahead.
The only thing that really just kind of probably more than anything grinds my gears, and it's not even anything that's really all that important, but to me it just drives me nuts when I'm out flying and I fly over a base after I have actually even stolen their helicopter and they're like, "Hey, who are you up there?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Now how the hell do you even know who I am right now?"
Right, they're solid.
I
They're
could
solid
be
bottoms
Tim.
too. They're not even bubble choppers.
Exactly. What the heck? Sorry, that was my only pet peeve with the flying on that part.
Mine is when no matter if you're boating or if you're freaking flying, they're saying driving, especially when you're flying. I mean,
Oh yeah. Driver, what are you doing?
that irks me so much. Who's driving that vehicle and you're flying a helicopter? I'm like, really?
That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me it's not really kind of like pointing things out. For me, it's I want something. I would love now being a combat engineer, minefields, IEDs, improvised explosive devices, uh, steel cutting charges, pushing charges, abatisses. That is my forte. Explosions are my forte. Give me something that I can like those bridges that have structures. If you have
Oh,
a convoy
gotcha.
that's coming across those, let me put some C4 on that. Let me blow that structure and take that whole bridge down. You know, let
And
me
then come back
create
tomorrow.
a
And
let
then
me
come back tomorrow and do it again.
yeah, or let me
Derail the
create
train.
that counter mobility, that abatis. Let me make things hard for them, you know, or at least give me a talk so we can actually have communications, a point to where we can all go to and have that communication back and forth to add some more realism, stuff like that. Most of all, I want my explosions.
I mean, at the very first mission of Amber Ruin was pretty good when you had the boat escape and then you had the explosion at the bridge. Even though the bridge did not collapse, it was still cool. Now there's that one super bridge that's I think it's over by aero testing. It's really big and it's like a suspension bridge, but it's got the arc underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
That would be cool to blow up.
That would.
Yeah.
Just Cause style.
Yeah, I mean, just blow up the bridge. I mean, now you cut off a major thoroughfare.
Like take a note from Battlefield, you know.
Yeah, that would actually be very interesting to be able to take
down the
targets out to weaken the enemy. That would be actually a pretty nifty thing
I
to
mean,
have.
you got the train that's going around. I mean, true enough, it does not stop, but there's a couple of them where the train actually goes through a few bases. Have it stop. Now it's a target.
Agree. Yeah, we should better utilize the train, especially in like after Wildlands. You couldn't. I really thought that they might add that kind of dynamic into Breakpoint, but they're kind of even worse in Breakpoint than they were in Wildlands. But there you have it. Honestly, thank you so much for all of you for coming on. And like I said at the beginning, huge amounts of respect to all of you. Thank you for your service. I'm sure every single person listening to this will be in agreement with that. Really do appreciate everything you've done and for the freedom that you've given us all. So thank you so much, and thank you for coming on. Massively appreciate it. Love to do this again down the road if you would be interested. And you know, just fascinating to hear your stories and hear from your perspective as well. I think a lot of people would have enjoyed hearing your perspective on the game and how to improve it, things like that. So thank you so much. Marcus, would you like to take us out?
This has been a Bullet Catcher Gaming Podcast. Join us next time for another exciting episode. Watch for us and join us on our Discord. Description in the comment section. Like, subscribe, and comment. Somebody made an extra noise. Signing off.